Hi, everybody. Kaylie Shapiro here. Welcome back to the episode 4 of the Right or Wrong podcast with Nick Zito, my co-host, as well as Matthew, who's with us today. Stephen Foster week. It's a big week today. We're going to get to see the Kentucky Oaks winner of last year, as well as the Kentucky Derby winner on the same card. So it's going to be a very exciting Saturday. Can't wait to hear Nick's thoughts on everything. But we did have some big news this week in the racing industry. The coach, Dwayne Lukas, has retired from racing. Nick, obviously a great friend of yours. Your rivalries, iconic. Such great memories between the two of you. Just wanted to check in and, see how you're doing and maybe talk a little bit about the coach as well.
Well, you're talking about someone basically that it's hard to describe, but the best way is he changed the game. That's unbelievable. When you have someone, iconic is the right word, but he changed the game. People might say, again, mom and pop, which I love out there, they're my fans, say, what do you mean? What do I mean? Well, trainers, the Dean trainers that I grew up with, they dressed nice, they had their suits and tie, but this guy was like the Bull Brummel. And, Wayne would come to town. It looked like, I can't explain it to you, but you could see it's impeccably dressed, spoke extremely well, and he changed the game. There's no question in my mind, he changed the game. So I used to see the old-time trainers, and they would have a neat barn. They made sure the grooms, everybody, would rake up and, make it look nice and this and that. But when you went to Wayne's barn, it was like a palace. You could eat off the floor, but it was like a park. The signs and the flowers and the way he had everything. That's what he liked. It was a different style. It's funny because, you admire somebody like that. And I always look up to Alan Jerkins, and you remember our last podcast when we had Bob Baffert. I'm going so fast because I'm getting excited. I would look at his barn, Wayne's barn, Jesus, whatever. But I wanted to be originally. So with the signs and everything, I would script mine. I would script them. And he goes, hey, Nick, I see that was pretty cool. You put like MPZ. I said, yeah. I said, because you're like extra crispy and I'm original. So like something like that. I don't want to be extra crispy. But he laughed. We were great friends. And let me tell you, he had a brain beyond belief. And I have so many memories. But, one of the great compliments, this goes back, ladies and gentlemen out there, I hate to talk in my age, but I'll tell you by dates, and thank God I still got a good memory. In 1991, I had Strike the Gold. So Wayne knew me. I met him in 1978, Wayne Lukas. And I looked at this guy and said, whoa, this is another special guy. I don't like Baffert the same way. This special, you could tell. Shug McGay is a special guy, too. It sounds crazy, but if you know Shug like I know, he's special, too. They come around once in a while, horse trainers like that, once in a blue moon. So with Wayne, he told everybody, you see this guy? Because you remember when I was a groom, how I came up with a few horses. He said, he will get the most out of Strike the Gold. And that was like chills went up and down my spine. I kind of knew, like, you know what? If I could get this done, and Strikey did win, it made me feel like, you know what, this is someone that I really respect. You know what I'm saying? That gave me that kind of compliment. So we became great friends. And as the 90s went, you look at the horses I had and the horses he had. So I had Go for Gin. So he won the Kentucky Derby 3 years later. Wayne had Tabasco Cat. So he had finished nowhere in the Derby, came back in the Preakness, beat Go for Gin. I had finished second. Came with Tabasco Cat. Came back into Belmont, beat Go for Gin again. And the following year, I had Star Standard going for the Belmont. He ran in the Preakness, he ran well, but he beat me again. If you look at the replay, Julie Crone, I think she had just come off like shoulder injury or something, and at the top of the stretch, it's like she dropped her arm a little bit, and Gary saw that, Stevens with Thunder Gulls, and he beat me again. So he comes over to me. It's an iconic picture too, and he kind of like puts his hands on my shoulder and goes, "Oh, it's okay, Nick. It's okay. You're gonna, because he had beaten the heck out of me last 2 years in a row. He says, "Don't worry, you're gonna get there." The following year, Louis Couture's in the Preakness. He takes Pat Day off the horse, Prince of Thieves, puts Jerry Bailey on, and we win the Preakness. At that time was the track record. And that was really cool. And like Wayne said, I'm making a coaching decision. And we used to kid back and forth. I said, yes, in my favor, the coaching decision. So it was always good, and we won it. First guy to come over to me was Wayne Lukas, the great Jim McKay. I think you might have a clip. Am I right? You might have a clip of it. And,
you won the Sir Barton Stakes, named after the first Triple Crown winner. Great congratulations are due you, no question about it.
Thank you, Jim. I really appreciate it, and the man upstairs takes care of me, and I guess when you try hard, all good things.
Yeah, really special moment.
That was pretty cool. That was a special moment for me and Wayne. And as the years went on, we just became great friends. The only thing I got against Wayne Lukas, you won't believe it. I guess it was 3 years ago. So the last 5 winters, I spent time in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And the people are just tremendous there. The sellers, they're unbelievable. Ron Moquette, one of my good friends. And they're just the special people in Hot Springs, Arkansas. It's got to be on everybody's bucket list. It should be on everybody's bucket list. But Wayne, I never bet a slot in my life. I always would bet horses. He gets me hooked on these stupid ass slots. That's the only thing I got against him. That's the only thing I got against him. He's the one who got me hooked on the slots. But it's crazy. But he loved it for fun. He liked it, his action. He's, whatever. He's just a special guy, And I don't think, I think his legacy will keep going because look at all the assistants he's got. So when you mention Tom Pletcher, you have to mention Wayne Lukas. When you mention, Karen McLaughlin or whoever I'm leaving out,
Mike Maker,
Mike Maker, who I respect a lot, you have to mention Wayne. So it's just a tremendous thing, and it's sad, but I think he wrote a poem, didn't he? Did he write a poem?
Yeah, it was a beautiful poem.
Yeah, people need to see that. You know what they need to do? This sounds crazy. I like David O'Rourke. I don't care. I go on record. He's always been good to me, always been nice to me. What David's got to do is put that at Belmont Park or Saratoga and put that poem up. When people walk in, they can see it. Because listen, we're in racing, right? We're in racing. So put that poem up, Dave, somehow, and you get a lot of respect from people. Because Wayne was one of the best in the game.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, the poem was about feeling like he's running out of time. And when you look back on his career and everything that he's accomplished, feeling like you're running out of time, even though you've lived like 100 lives in the racing industry,
no question.
That just speaks to his passion.
You know why, Kaylie, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but you know why I'm so pumped up all the time, especially with you two guys, I love this, is he's my inspiration. He's the one kept telling me, look how old I am, or look what I am, look what I'm doing. Wins the Preakness last year at 89? That's got a world's record. Am I right or wrong? Right?
I think he is the oldest trainer to win the Preakness.
Yeah. It's gotta be. Yeah. But he kept pushing me, kept pushing me. Whatever you are. Because it's hard, but you know what? I'm grateful. I think I'm one of the few, other than his family, to have good memories with Wayne, like the special memories. I'll tell you a funny story. Would you like to hear a funny story about Wayne? Okay. So Ron Moquette, right? You know who he is. So he tells us, he's like, I try to help Ronnie over the years. We're great friends. So it's 2007. So Wayne said to Ronnie, he goes, look, Ronnie, he goes, why don't you come with me tonight? We're going to that kickoff that Arkansas has every year. They have a kickoff. It's in Little Rock, downtown Little Rock. Nice hotel, a lot of guests, do a great job presentation on the, opening of Oklahoma, Hot Springs. It's a kickoff. So Ronnie said, no, Wayne, I don't really want to go, this and that. He said, no, you don't understand. You might meet somebody there. He goes, I'll drive you. So this was 2007. Right? So he says to Ronnie, no, he said, you don't have to dress up. Just put a sport jacket on or a clean pair of jeans, whatever it is. So Ronnie sees Wayne pulling up from his window, and he's dressed like Beau Brummel, dressed to kill. So Ronnie says, oh, I better go get a tie and a jacket, whatever. So now he gets in the car and he goes with him. So I don't know if you've ever been to Little Rock. The roads are not that great. Anyway, Ronnie says, look, I like to get up real early and I don't want to stay here late. Wayne says, no, we'll leave at the right time. So now, this is crazy. He's driving Ronnie back. The roads are unbelievable. And he's driving fast. So Ronnie goes, Wayne, take it easy. He goes, no, I got to get there. I got to get home. You want to be there early? Don't worry. This is what this car's made for. Range Rover, ice, snow, this and that. So Ronnie's thinking, he goes, Wayne, please slow down. And Wayne goes, why? He goes, because all it would say is famous horse trainer, world famous horse trainer, dies in a car wreck with a passenger. he said, Wayne, he goes, please, he said, they'll only remember you, they won't remember me. But Wayne is something else. He was something else, believe me. So hopefully he can still hang on a little bit longer, but I have nothing for affection for Wayne. You could tell, and everybody knows. I don't care.
And just how incredible it was obviously you mentioned Seize the Gray last year. That horse winning the Preakness, such a cool horse. I think there wasn't one person that wasn't happy with the result that day. That was just incredible. And then obviously he had American Promise this year as well, another Derby starter. And it was my first time getting to go to Churchill Downs on the backside, both of us, and we were watching the horses leading up to the Derby the entire week before. And I spent a lot of time, and Matthew can attest, kind of circling around his barn quietly throughout the day because I wanted every opportunity to be able to observe someone like that and just to see the level of care and passion and everything about him is just obviously incredible. And I'm really glad that you were able to come on and share some stories about him today.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the more incredible things is he does have a horse entered in the marquee race this weekend. Actually, Ashcroft is entered in the Stephen Foster, and maybe that's a little bit of a transition because interestingly enough, you brought up Strike the Gold, and that's a horse that's a little bit of a trivia question right now because we're seeing the top two horses from last year's Kentucky Derby face off as 4-year-olds. And the last time that happened, Nick, it was Strike the Gold and Best Pal in 1992 when they ran against each other in the Pimlico Special as 4-year-olds. So seeing this 1-2 finisher in the Derby run back at 4, incredibly rare, especially with today's stallion deals and things like that, keeping them in service.
And you know what's funny? It's always good to see a Derby winner like you got now, with Dan. You always gotta be thankful for that because it took Strikey. That was his 13th race after the Kentucky Derby, and he won the Pimlico Special. So Best Pal, he did the same thing. He beat him again, but that's great that you got the Derby winner running it, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a pretty nice field. I have a graphic up here of the 7 horses that are in the race, highlighted by Sierra Leone, of course, the reigning Breeders' Cup Classic winner. Mystik Dan won the Kentucky Derby, came back to win last time out, which was his first win since that Derby. You have a horse like First Mission and Mindframe that are really serious. And as mentioned, the coach has Ashcroft in here. Nick, I'm curious, when you look at a horse like Sierra Leone, a horse that has a huge closing kick on a 1.125-mile dirt track like Churchill Downs, he obviously ran really well in that Kentucky Derby as a 3-year-old, but that's always a running style that I think gives handicappers at least a little bit of pause because he needs a little bit of a setup and he needs the ability to make that clean run to get the job done.
No question. I mean, if I was gambling, I'll probably bet Mindframe. He's got the inside, he's got post 2. I like a horse like that, especially they prepped him for this race. So I think he's going to be tough. Of course, listen, Mystik Dan hits, all these horses, if you look at it, it's really, really, really a good field, And listen, would it be amazing if Ashcroft won? Would it be unbelievable or what? you couldn't even make, you couldn't forget it. I mean, I don't know. It would be,
I don't think there would be a dry eye in the house if Ashcroft.
No, definitely not. But it's a great field. Stephen Foster's a great race, and it's an important race too. It's an important race. But these horses are all great. Mindframe is just spectacular these days, and he's a good horse. There's no question. He's a very good horse. Sierra Leone is champion. Mystik Dan is what they call a Derby champion. First mission, he's got the one. He's nothing bad with any of these horses. Hit show. There's nothing bad with any one of these horses. It's a very strong field. For me, I'll go with Mindframe. I hope he gets the trip.
I'm curious something about Mindframe and your experience, Nick, with obviously training. He's such an interesting horse in that he runs at all these different distances at 7 furlongs, at a mile, at a mile and 16th, a mile and 1/8, a mile and a quarter. I don't even know what his best distance is, and it really speaks to his versatility. And I'm curious, kind of in your experience, have you had horses like that, and kind of how do you approach training a horse like that can excel at so many different distances?
I had a horse called Sun King. I couldn't figure out, and he got beat a whisker in the Metropolitan, which was very sad. This Tracy Farmer, a horse called Sun King, was beautiful, and he got beat a nose in a Whitney too. Well, nose. He did win the Tampa Bay Derby. Did win the Pennsylvania Derby. So he reminds me a little bit of this horse. But I like Mindframe because of what you just said, Matthew. When you could be consistent makes you great. So if he runs 7/8 in the slop, he wins. He runs these other races long. He does, well, he wins. To me, he's a hell of a horse. He's a hell of a horse. So I like him because that he can handle any distance. So
what's certainly interesting is, even after he debuted, he romped that day, he won his second start, and then after that, they put him right into the Belmont and the Haskell, and it was also partly because Fierceness was out at that point. So they Rapoli opted to send Mindframe, and the horse clearly was a little bit immature as well. You look at the way
look how great he ran with Dorn, with those horses.
And he passed the winner, right? And then
twice.
Twice. So when you think about it,
it's
pretty incredible to think that he finished second in both of those races, and he's never lost another race. So maybe this distance was always the intention with him. Certainly, when you look at the pedigree and the way he looks, you'd imagine it was. But it'll be really interesting. That's my pick too. As much as I want to pick Sierra Leone, he's a horse that needs a really big setup.
He's a great
horse. He'll probably run second in my mind. I mean, he's always so consistent.
Yeah, he is.
Right.
Yep.
And
it's a good field. It's a good field. And, it depends, like you say, with the pace. That's why I kind of like him too, because I think he could hang around. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to be that far off. He doesn't have to be close. It's a very good race. There's no question. It's a very, very good race.
I'm interested in one other factor here, Nick. If you have any experience with it, or if you've talked to trainers who have experience with this, Hit Show is a horse that's making his first start since winning the Dubai World Cup. And I know as a handicapper, a lot of times I tend to be a little shy about using a horse in their first start back in North America after going over to the Middle East. Is that something you've had any experience with, or talked to people, and kind of how do you think about that in terms of how horses bounce back from that sort of intense travel?
They usually need a lot of time. They usually need, and weather has a lot to do with it. I mean, I'm sure he's used to the heat by now, but obviously it's a tough task. I mean, Brad Cox is a terrific trainer, champion trainer too. So at the end of the day, I don't know, but it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. Definitely not. They're getting better at it. They're getting better at it. The horses are getting better at it, but it's not easy. I'd rather stick to what we talked about. I'd rather go with the logical horses. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and you know what, too? The way these horses are Kenny McPeak got Mystik Dan in good form. He got him in good form right now. So it should be a great, great race. Should be great. Yeah. But I do like Mindframe. That's my pick.
Yeah, definitely agree, and curious to see what prices we're gonna get on all of these horses as well. I mean, it's
Yeah,
incredible just to see Mystik Dan run in general and to see him come
no
back
question.
in great form. Super exciting. I mean, my opinion, I obviously Antiquarian, I think was probably the toughest company he was keeping in that start. This is definitely a way tougher spot than
Yeah.
the blame. The blame that he was in last time out,
Yeah.
but it'll be very exciting for sure.
I have another question for Nick, actually, and this is it relates to Saffy Joseph and Skippylongstocking. So Saffy is notoriously not great at Churchill Downs. You know, he just has not gotten a lot of victories there. And I'm curious, Nick, in your career, was there ever a track where you just had a tough time, or your horses maybe didn't run as well as you had hoped, or maybe a circuit or you know, a stretch you went through where you go, man, I just can't seem to get a winner here for whatever reason?
You do that if you're training long enough. You're going to find it. Believe it or not, I had trouble in Florida for a while, and then all of a sudden, I went to Florida Derby 3 times. You know, I don't know. You could have trouble sometimes. I don't know what it is, but you can. So I see what you mean. I noticed that myself. I agree with you. He doesn't have much luck there at Churchill Downs. And Matthew, you know, folks got to know something about you. The research that you did. Think about this. I didn't know it was that long ago that 2 Derby horses, Strike the Gold and Best Pal, up to now. I didn't know that. You know how long ago that is? I mean, you think about it. That's 1991. Am I right or wrong? Good.
I was in middle school. I mean, I
Yeah, but you know how you do great research, which is good because the fans out there need to know history about racing. Look how hard it was, right, for Derby horses to run at 4-year-olds. And like you say, with all the breeding and retired and this and that and everything. So very good you came up with that. I'm very, very proud for you and very thankful for you for do that history. Because you know what? Anytime you're part of history, you got to be happy.
Yeah.
Or you have horses part of history, and Strike was part of history today.
Yeah. No, I love, listen, I was a political science professor for 15 years. I love history. You know, that's always been kind of a big part of what I like to do. And so one of the things we try to do up on NYRA Bets is have historical trends for big races. And so going back 20, 30 years and sharing with people, here are the trends that we've seen in the Travers, in the Whitney, in the Jim Dandy, in these really big races, in the Derby, the Preakness, the Belmont. So people can appreciate and understand trends of like what type of horses win these races, but then also, to your point, Nick, just remembering some of those great champions that we've had in the past and how long it's been since some of these horses have done some of these amazing things. So it's necessary part.
We always talk about racing needs to be like baseball, football, basketball. They need to be that way. And this show is bringing that out. You're bringing that out. The two of you are bringing it out, and hopefully I could help, and we love it. You know, we love it.
I would say you more than help. You do.
And honestly, besides the Stephen Foster, I mean, I hate to bring it up. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Thorpedo Anna, so I'm super excited for her to run in the Fleur de Lis this weekend. But I do have my concerns. I always single her on all my tickets. I'm not 100% sure. I probably will anyway because I love the horse and I think she can win against the type of field she's facing this week. But I'm curious if you've ever had, well, in Thorpedo Anna's, instance, she faced the boys in the Travers. She ran like an insane figure she's never run close to really ever in her life. And then after that, she won, 2 or 3 starts after the fact. And then now, she had a little bit of a off effort last time out where she just didn't really fire. Have you ever trained? Because fillies and mares are a little different, in terms of when they tell you that they're done. And I'm just curious from your perspective, have you ever had a filly or a mare that had an not necessarily over the top, but a huge performance like that then, they bounced a little bit and ever reached that level that they once were at?
Well, I had a couple of champion fillies. I had Stone Song and Birdtown and in the gold. I had some really nice, Miss Weber had that nice filly. I had some nice fillies, but I've never had anything like Thorpedo Anna. So Peter Anna, which is another story of why people need to get in the game. How much did Thorpedo Anna cost?
40.
$40,000. You think about that. And you can't put a price on that filly because she was so special. The race she ran in the Travers was beyond belief. Beyond belief. And then coming back and winning those races too was unbelievable. I think, in my opinion, with Thorpedo Anna, it sounds nutty what I'm about to say, but she has to run good. If she doesn't run good, then we're just gonna we'll just say, hey, we're not gonna mess. I don't think Kenny is gonna mess around with her, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Try to see what happens in this race, and obviously he thinks he's got her 100%. Sometimes, believe it or not, she was one of the few horses you could put a line through. Again, for handicappers and bettors, what do you mean put a line? Well, something happens that day. I had a horse ride in Florida the other day. We don't know what happened. The blinkers were on, but they're open blinkers. So, but he was confused. Like my owner said, he was confused, she said to me, which is true. So you don't know. Maybe that day, Thorpedo Anna was confused. I know it sounds goofy, but you know what? Sometimes it's not only plausible, it has the added advantage of being true. She could have been goofy that day, but something made her goofy. So I'm going to put a line through Thorpedo Anna and hope she runs out of the TV again like she always does.
I hope so, and I agree. I mean, who knows? It really could go either way. You'd imagine that she looks, honestly, in these works better than she did going into her
Then she'll
race
run out
last
of the
time
TV.
as well.
And if she doesn't,
Yeah.
then Kenny will say, you know what, I got to, think about something. That's all.
Yeah. And
She got banged up pretty bad that
yep.
day, too. She got the wind knocked out of her in that race.
Yeah,
so
that's what I mean. You don't believe me.
Yeah.
Got to put a line through. There are a lot of times you put lines through horses, they confuse you. I mean, you'd like to have consistency. You'd like to have consistency. Great Pete Rose said, consistency makes you great. So in any sport, consistency makes you great.
And honestly, up until that race, she was as consistent of a horse as we've had in the sport in the last couple of years. I mean, she just never turned in a bad effort. And juxtaposing a horse like Fierceness, who it seems like, does sometimes go a little up and down with his efforts over his career. It seems like he's kind of matured and gotten a little bit better now. But even a horse like Sierra Leone, who we were talking about, might not have always liked the track at Saratoga and kind of, needs a little bit of a setup occasionally and things like that. And man, every time she ran, she delivered. So I hear you, Nick, in terms of just drawing a line through that last race.
Definitely. And the point that Matthew just brought up about Sierra Leone, I mean, is another great thing to ask you about. Sierra Leone, it was rumored or some observations that maybe the horse just didn't really like Saratoga because when he left, he obviously won the Classic. And I think Chad Brown had made a comment that he wanted to just get out of Saratoga, Sierra Leone, towards the end of the summer. Have you ever had a horse that just hated a specific track, just one track ever?
Yeah, and Saratoga sometimes could be that kind of track. It could be, I mean, the atmosphere in Saratoga is just wonderful for horses. Again, not to beat a dead horse or broken wreck or whatever, but we discovered Saratoga a long time ago, and we said this is the best place to train horses. So, but sometimes they don't like it for some reason. They don't like a track, or they don't like it. And if Chad said he couldn't wait to get out, well, then Chad's pretty sharp too. He didn't want to get out. He knows what he's doing. And you know what else too? He wound up winning the race. But he's a great horse. But he got help, and Fierceness ran the race of his life. And that's, we all know that. You can't, if you keep going that fast and you keep running the way you did, I mean, come on. You got to give that horse his due, too. So, we got some really nice horses this year to watch. I'm excited. I got, as a fan, I love Fierceness. I love, Sierra Leone. You love all these horses, You love Mindframe. You love them all. I mean, there's some nice horses. So I'm happy about
so entertaining as a fan, and then also as a handicapper and a bettor, because there's just, in a race like this, for example, the Stephen Foster, I mean, you can go a couple of different ways about it. So better horses, more a few really good horses in one race. Obviously, great for bettors too. So, and the 3-year-old division is really strong, and the older division as well. So it is going to be a great summer.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, hopefully, we see some of these runners from Friday or Saturday in the Stephen Foster come back up here in the Whitney. I know we'll certainly see, horses like Fierceness and White Abario in that race. And so, add them to this mix as well. And it's going to be a lot of fun up here at the spot of the summer.
You know, it's going to be a lot of fun. The Right or Wrong podcast. That's a lot of fun.
That's the best part of the summer right there.
Yeah, just to tell the viewers, I mean, next week is going to be our last remote episode, and then Nick and I will be doing, and Matthew obviously sometimes as a guest, whenever he'd like to join. I mean, we're definitely going to be filming in person together throughout
Matthew,
Saratoga.
you know how famous he is. Famous he is. Ladies and gentlemen, look at Matthew. Look at this guy. Look what he's
easily
done.
The most
NYRA Bets. Look what he's done. We got
the,
by the way, people tell me we got the #1 podcast in racing by far. That's what they tell me. So
I wouldn't doubt it.
Keep going. I hope it keeps going.
It's only going to keep getting better. So
yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Hey, by the way,
can't wait to get up to Saratoga with you.
How you like my background? Pretty good, huh? How you like my background, Matthew?
I love it.
I love it.
I love it. We need the soup of the day. That's what we need. I love it.
Hey, we got to have fun, but God bless you both, all right?
Can't
wait to see you guys next week, all right? We'll do it next week. Special guest.
Yeah, absolutely.
See you guys next week.
All right, guys.